Cindy again, and I've got a story. Actually, it might be another occasion where there's a couple of little stories. We're getting close to the end of our time in Morocco. We're talking 1973, 74 that we lived there. We came back to the States in 75, and but we had a couple other little adventures that happened when we were, before we moved. One of the things that we didn't have a pet when we moved there, but being military, when you move, sometimes you can't take your pets with you, and that's a hard thing for any family, any kid. But while we were there, somebody had to give up their dog, their poodle, and so we took in Trixie, but she was how sometimes poodles are very skittish and all that. But one of the things that happened with my mom was she was going up the stairs, and they're very slick and very hard. Terrazine, I think I don't remember exactly what they're called, but almost like a marble-like stairwell. She had fallen, hurt her back. She didn't break it, but she hurt it pretty badly. So she ended up going to Morocco. Not Morocco. She ended up going to Wiesbaden, Germany, and that was where they were sending us all the time for our vision issues. Since there was not an ophthalmologist on staff in Morocco, we would have to go to Wiesbaden for regular checkups. Well, when she hurt her back, they medevaced her to Germany as well. So she was there, and then Jeff and I were in Morocco, and the neighbors helped, of course. And then we also had a Fatima, or and some would call them like maids or whatever. They were locals that would be hired by the military, and they would do housekeeping and guarding and things like that. And that's one of the things that the military always tries to do, is they always try to hire people who are from that community, because you're supposed to help the community, and the way you do that is giving them jobs and things like that. Of course, we weren't allowed to pay them a whole lot, so we would give them a lot of stuff. But that wasn't something that Jeff and I were privy to, but Mom always made sure she took care of anybody who worked for us. Zora was our first Fatima, our maid, and I think this was when Mama was gone, and she was making lunch for us. So she was going to heat up some hot dogs, and she's looking at hot dogs, and she kind of looks at our poodle, and Jeff and I are like, no, not dog. They're not dogs. And then she's like, what's hot dog? We're like, and we're like 6 and 9. So we kind of go make pig noises, kind of thing. And she threw the hot dogs across the room like she had been bit by a snake. And of course, Jeff and I didn't really understand a lot of the connotation of dealing with pork with a Muslim community, and so we thought it was funny. But we found out later that it was actually almost sacrilege for them to touch pork. Not that hot dogs are really pork, but but just the fact that we had to be considerate of their religious beliefs was very important for us. Plus, she's a sweet lady. Unfortunately, she had passed from diabetes later on, and it was sad for us. But then we had another lady named Fatima that would come and help take care of us. We didn't really use the maids like most places, most of the people did. Mainly what my mom liked was having somebody who could do the ironing, because my mother hated ironing. So just having someone, and then someone who to clean up Jeff's room, because he had a messy room. So it's G.I. Joe stuff and blocks and everything everywhere. So that was a full-time job right there. I was a little bit cleaner. Another story that happened when my mother was in the hospital was my friend Mary. She lived up the hill that hill that we would go sliding down. And so my dad had this bad habit of, when we would ask him a question, he would just go, "You can do anything you want. Just go," And we're like, "Hey, Dad, we want to," and he's like, "Whatever you want, go ahead, do whatever you want to do." So Mary and I decided that we wanted to play in the bathtub, so we put our bathing suits on, and so we filled the bathtub up. Okay, we're 8 or 9 years old, so we filled the tub up, and we use it like a slip and slide in the tub. Well, the water is slushing over the tub and going down the stairs, the same stairs that my mom fell down. And so my dad's kind of like trying to figure out what the noise was, and he looks, and there's water, like a waterfall, coming down the stairs. So he gets up, goes upstairs, and he go into the bathroom. What are you girls doing? And we're just like, "Well, you said we could do anything we want." So of course he had to, sort of not do that anymore. So of course there was a whole lot of cleaning up water, and again on the same steps that my mother had fallen on and had gotten hurt. Now the poodle that we had at the time, when Mom got home from the hospital, she was still pretty laid up, and Trixie would not leave her room, and she became very skittish and wouldn't leave her, and it was she wouldn't let people in the room, and it was getting to be very difficult for us to care for her and take care of Mom. So we found another family for her that had a baby, and she loved this family with a baby, so that was a good change for her. And Mom just couldn't handle all that with a poodle. But we thought Mom was didn't like dogs. We just thought she was just mean like that, like Scrooge when it came to animals, and not really understanding that she just didn't want to get attached to the pet, and something happened to it. She was actually kind of sensitive about it, but Jeff and I didn't realize that. But one day my mom comes home with this puppy, and it's a boxer puppy. And so originally we named it Sultan, but then we were warned that you couldn't name animals after something like a sultan or the king or anything like that, or Fatima or Muhammad or anything like that, because that was disrespectful to the people of royalty and to their God, to God and all that. So we changed it from Sultan, and we changed it to Safari because he was brown, and we lived up near the Sahara. So Safari. So he was our puppy, and he was a good dog. And we were able to bring him back to the States, but we just couldn't have the papers on him because he was actually had papers. But that would have cost us a whole lot more money, which we couldn't do. So we just didn't have his papers to come to the States. But we brought him back to the States. But in the meantime, here he is, a puppy in Morocco. And one of the things that was so funny, during certain parts of the season, we would have a multitude of frogs that would just come out, and they were huge. So here it was, I mean huge. And so we let Safari out into the back to go do his thing, and then we heard this whimpering, and we go to the screen door, and poor Safari is kind of backed up in the corner, and there's this huge frog just looking at him and had him cornered, and Safari was scared of that frog because he was, like I said, he was just so big. So we had to rescue him from our frog. Another part of that story is when we brought him back home to the States, we would get these little frogs in the garage, and we would go out and we see these little smushed frogs all over the So he had PTSD. So he was squishing frogs whenever these little frogs when he was big, and I just we thought that was because he was traumatized as a puppy. Um, One of the things that happened when we had to move back to States, uh, the base was closing down, and they were ordering all of us to get out of Morocco, and so they had certain speculations with certain specs to to create a cage for the dog to be able to be transferred from, you know, overseas, and to be on the plane. So my dad built this nice, nice dog pen, and to take him back to the States. And it was made out of wood, but it had screen. It was nice, you know, passed inspection, the whole bit. Uh, One of the things too is when they tranquilize the dogs, you know, to make them drowsy, so that it's easier for the dogs. You know, it's not so emotional for them to go from one location to the next like that. And it was a long flight, to go from Morocco back to the States. Um, the problem was is his reaction was he was actually howling and barking the whole time, and they had actually given him extra tranquilizers, and it just reversed the issue. So he's barking and howling the whole time. So we could hear him down, you know, below, and I was get upset because my poor baby was, you know, so emotional and barking the whole time. And so we landed in Portugal, and I think we were kind of forced down because there was some kind of coup or something going on in Portugal. So there was actually gunfire. So we're landed at the airport in Portugal, and we could hear the gunfire, and then I could hear my dog down below barking and howling. And so I'm upset because I want my dog. I want to go get my dog and calm him down. And I wasn't worried about the gunfire. I was more worried about my dog. But apparently they settled the issue, and so we were able to go back. And then we landed in New York. Apparently, he had chewed his way through the safari. He had chewed his way through the pen and was able to get out. So whenever they're unloading or reloading the plane, Safari had gotten out and he was on the tarmac, and they were chasing him down on the tarmac. So I didn't know about all that till later, but so they got him, and they brought him into the airport with us, and we were able to give him some water and be with him, and we still had to get to Columbia, South Carolina. We were in Newark, so we were waiting for the next plane for us to go to Columbia. So Safari, he was a handful, but he was a love. You know, he was so good, and there's more stories about him, but that was what we had to deal with coming back from Morocco, and so that was like the best thing we brought back. We brought back brass and baskets and tapestries and all sorts of things, but the best thing we got in Morocco was Safari, and you know, I had him all the way up to college. So we did have him for a while. You know, there was a lot that we got to do while we were in Morocco, and I you know, got to enjoy those years, but you know, it was kind of nerve-wracking when we were going off base, and it was just a rush. You know, they had been our home for 3 years, and I was happy there. I enjoyed it, but it was time for us to go. And we come to find out later that Kenitra, the base we were on, technically wasn't even supposed to be there. It was supposed to be closed down after after World War II, I believe. But because of the Cold War, you know, the states wanted to have access to information about Russia. So So they kept that base open just to kind of keep an eye on the Cold War stuff. So it was like I said, it was an adventure, and we got to do a lot of touristy kind of stuff and visiting lots of places and meeting all sorts of awesome people, and and I treasure that time that we had. Um, it was the first time that we really got to be a family, because before we moved there, my dad had been would be gone for months at a time. There would be times that he would be gone 3 or 4 months, and we would have a Christmas tree up in February to be able to have Christmas. But in Morocco, we actually got to celebrate our holidays, and we got Ramadan off as well. So I was like, okay, that's the day off from school, so I wasn't going to fuss about that. Um, but yeah, it was definitely a great adventure, and it was definitely a wake up call when we came back to the States. At that time, we found out that Nixon was booted out of office, because a lot of the information wasn't allowed to come to us. Uh, there was blocked out, redacted, I guess, and it was a lot of that. That's the one thing when you live in these foreign countries. Some of the information is going to be blocked, where you can't get access to the information. Like it's not the freedoms like we're used to here in the States, and people don't realize how privileged we are to live here and how much freedom we do have here. Uh, no matter what you may think about the States at this time, there's a lot that we should be grateful for. Um, and people like my dad, were the ones who made sure that we were able to be, maintain our freedom. So there are some of the little stories about Morocco that I got to share with you, and it was quite an adventure, and I'm grateful that I had that time. There's a lot of stuff that started happening once we moved back to the States that may not be as fun and good, and it's going to be difficult for me to share those stories. But the thing that I want to do is I want to be honest. Now there's going to be some stuff that I won't be able to share with you because it's other people that I have to be respectful, because it's about them as well, and I don't have the freedom to really talk about other people. I want to keep it about me and my stories. So yeah, I just want to be honest about who I am and what I am, and how blessed I am, and how God has just been in our lives this whole time. And yeah, there's difficult times, there's difficult things that we had to endure, but we got through it. I'm going to be turning 63 this year, so all in all, yeah, I'm okay. There's some bad stuff that I'm dealing with, but who doesn't have bad stuff going on in their life? It's life. So again, I'm going to say, be a blessing, be blessed, and I have more stories to come. I'm kind of going through my photo albums and trying to figure out where I want to go next with my stories. Coming back to the States was a big change, and especially going from a place like Morocco and coming back to South Carolina. And you would think that living in a place like Morocco, where you're dealing with different religions and different cultures, come back to the States, and this is where I have to deal with racial issues, and that was difficult, because being military, I've been around so many different types of people, and unfortunately, there's some of the aspects of racial issues got involved in my life, because of the school I was at, because of where we moved to, and I had to really learn how to navigate that. So anyway, I'm going to let y'all go, and hopefully I will see you soon. Hopefully it won't be such a gap like it has been for the past couple weeks. But I hope to see you. So, bye.